Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, it's Monday, and every once in a while I just happen to bump into what I would call fire video clips, and I have found about 3 or 4 of them for you this morning. So you're going to love. I'm going to show you these videos right off the bat. Before I get going, if you want to join DAIXRP.com, which is the Patreon, you know what to do. Or you can join the Patreon, the private group through YouTube if you click the join button below any of my videos. And it's less than the price of a cup of coffee. You get the video, you get the extended video, and you get no commercials. Okay, now this is a great reminder right here, folks. This is one of those articles about some guys, they went home after a convention, and then they were held up at gunpoint. This is the reason. This is one of the big reasons, in my opinion, self-custody is not the way to go. And I'm not saying, I mean, it's your choice, but I stopped using self-custody for many reasons. But this is probably one of the bigger ones. It makes you a target. I mean, it's like having. To me, institutional custody is the same thing. That's one of the positive things of having bank accounts and things. It's not as easy to be taken advantage of. Well, Caleb and Brown, my affiliate partners, is the first place that I've been able to get real institutional custody. They do it through Fireblocks. I also get a person I can talk to. I also they have the liquidity necessary because they're partnered with all kinds of liquidity providers around the world. So they check all the boxes for me. So if you are tired of worrying about the safety of your crypto, and you are worried and you're tired of not having anybody to talk to and having to email some support email, this in my opinion is the answer that I've been looking for. You can go to xrpwealth589.com, and then it'll send you to my Caleb and Brown page, and you can click sign up today. And I highly recommend people do that before this market jumps off. Now, this clip, right? There's been a lot of talk in the XRP community about potential price sets and all. That's a controversial topic, but Chris Giancarlo was the chairman of the CFTC. And if you don't, all you got to do is listen to this clip, and you'll see. You can call it price setting or controlling the price or price controls. You can call it whatever you want. But there's a couple of points to get out of this. First, the U.S. government can do it. Second, all these Bitcoin that think they're libertarian and all this, what he's talking about here is creating these reserves so that the U.S. can make price go up if they want, make price go down if they want. And I believe personally, this would be how you would strategically, if you wanted to, and let me go ahead and show you. We know that David Schwartz about the XRP's price says, so a higher priced asset is a better vehicle for payments, at least if you're targeting high value payments. So as you listen to this, I ask you the question, which I asked right here. So what if the United States has XRP in its stockpile and needs a higher priced asset as a better vehicle for payments?
President Trump talked about was his frustration with the Biden administration that after they'd seize the crypto, they'd sell the crypto. And he said, look, had they held on to the crypto, we would have billions of dollars that we could use to pay down government debt and otherwise. So he complained that government shouldn't be selling seized crypto. That raises then 2 issues: crypto stockpiles and crypto reserves. And they have a slight different connotation. Since the beginning of time, we know, going back to ancient Egypt, governments have been stockpiling commodities. Ancient Egypt stockpiled wheat and corn. Today, governments like the United States, like China, stockpile an enormous amount of commodities. China stockpiles pork, stockpiles rebar, stockpiles copper, stockpiles petroleum. The United States stockpiles and reserves petroleum. So governments do this with commodities all the time. They do it for various purposes. The simple one is simply in times of need, they can release the stockpile and it can be used by citizens. But they also use it for strategic purposes. The United States petroleum stockpile is more than a stockpile. It's actually a reserve. And here's where a reserve is different than a stockpile. It's used for strategic purposes. We use our petroleum stockpile to actually adjust the world price of petroleum. We buy and sell to affect the global price. The Biden administration sold down our petroleum reserve dramatically to attempt to bring down the price of oil running into the last election. Since the dollar is in part based upon the global price, there's also a monetary impact. And that's why the Trump administration has says we are going to stockpile different currencies, different cryptos, but we're going to reserve Bitcoin. And the reason why we're going to reserve and use Bitcoin strategically for monetary policy purposes is because a number of countries have announced they are going to experiment with a new digital currency that's based upon Bitcoin. And so by having a reserve, we now have both an offensive and defensive capability to protect the dollar in a new global digital world. So it shows a lot of strategic thinking and also recognition that Bitcoin is moved into the realm of being having monetary policy impact. You know, from the beginning of history, most currencies have been stabilized with a commodity.
Stabilized, huh?
And that commodity is a metal commodity, silver or gold. It's only in the last 50 years or so, since the United States went off the gold standard in the 1970s, that the United States has experimented with having a true fiat currency not anchored to any commodity. Now, some commentators will argue that no, the dollar still remains based upon a petroleum commodity, but it's still a physical commodity. When in 2017, as chairman of the CFTC, I greenlighted the world's first Bitcoin futures, we were focused on the fact that in the future, commodities, not just physical commodities, but in fact, digital commodities may become anchors for currencies. And I wanted to make sure that the global Bitcoin price was set in dollars, not in any other currency, because the time may come when once again we return to a commodity stabilizer for our money, but this time around that commodity may be a digital commodity, not a physical commodity.
Folks, if you still believe that the U.S. government and other governments were not involved in this from the very beginning, and or if you still believe that the governments they said, oh no, this crypto thing was hatched by some libertarian in his basement, and now we just can't control it, and so therefore we have to adopt this. If you think that's really how it happened, I have. We're going into summer here in South Georgia, and I have the greatest igloo that'll probably melt inside of probably 6 or 7 hours. It gets pretty hot down here, and you are the perfect buyer. I mean, I've been saying that for a long time, and it's so true. These guys were involved in this from the word go, including Bitcoin. Write it down. Now, what do you think, Chris Giancarlo? Where do you think Chris Giancarlo heard this analogy?
We were out in front of securities regulation in the 1930s, before most jurisdictions, including Europe, caught up in the 1980s and the 1990s. And so the influence of our financial regulatory structures have been the standard of the world. However, all of that is built upon a 20th century analog system of messages and fairly clunky, slow, and friction-filled architecture. I mean, as modern as things are today, if I wanted to get $5,000 from here to London, sadly, it's still easier for me to go to the ATM, get the money out, put it in a suitcase, and get it on an airplane. And it would get to London faster than if I tried to send a wire and go through a lot of our financial infrastructure. And that's even more true once you go further out into the globe. So while we've enjoyed tremendous leadership in the old 20th century analog world, the world is changing, the technology is changing. And so we need to lead this new architecture if we're going to maintain our edge in terms of global finance.
And then, sorry, but there's a third. I mean, Chris Giancarlo, he's one of the good guys. He's one of the smartest guys in crypto. And by the way, he's going to be at XRP Las Vegas. Go to xrplasvegas.com to get your tickets. And here he tells you it's going to happen really fast.
So it's going to happen really fast now. It's happening really fast. So one of the things that the Biden administration hostility to crypto did is it gave cover to every CEO of traditional finance, our traditional banks and financial systems. It gave them cover to not have a crypto strategy. What's happened is that cover has been ripped off. I would say that any CEO of a traditional financial firm that doesn't have a serious crypto strategy has got serious reputation risk and better be looking over their shoulder at the junior members of the executive team that are going to push them out of the way. This is the year that we're seeing traditional finance move in a very big way. So the head of Bank of America, Brian Moynihan, recently said that once this stablecoin legislation passes, they are going to introduce a stablecoin. You know, one of the ways banks make money, aside from lending, is that they move money around the globe. It's called correspondent banking. The way that banks move the trillions of dollars that are moving every year around the globe is they move it from one bank to the other through what's called the correspondent banking system. Well, that's going to be completely displaced by stablecoins. In the same way that, I'll use another analogy, you know, once upon a time, photography, you traveled around the world, you'd see these Kodak shops on every street corner because you'd go get your film and you get your film developed and you'd take it from one place to the other. Correspondent banking is like those camera stock shops. And once digital photography came around, you took the picture and you sent it back home to grandma the same minute that you were taking that photograph, you know, at the Louvre in Paris. And so stablecoins are it's going to challenge the bank's role in moving money around the globe dramatically. And so traditional finance has suddenly realized that Washington is no longer a barrier to innovation. They're now encouraging it, and the banks are now moving in a very, very big way. And so there's all those new entrants that have come up in the last 10 years are suddenly going to find they've got major competition from some of the biggest Wall Street banks.
There you have it, folks, but we're not done yet. Wait till you see the next clip I'm going to show you. First, we've got an XRP price that's on the move, 246. All of crypto's up to 3.36 trillion. The money is moving in, folks. No, we're at 249. I got to look at my phone here. Hold on a second. Let me look at my phone here. Oh, yeah, we're on the move, folks. Now, you want to get excited about what's coming? Watch this Raoul Pal clip right here I just put out. I bet this thing is getting. You need to lock in, folks. In fact, I was sitting with some of my friends on the couch this weekend having a little sip of whiskey, and my friends own some XRP, and they're always asking me, they don't completely understand this industry, but they're always asking me, what's is this thing really going to happen and all this? Well, I'm going to send this clip to them this morning, and this right here explains to you the big picture of what's coming, folks, and we're here.
This is the big one. This is your chance to make wealth. And not only can you make a bit of wealth, it's the fastest appreciating asset class in all of human history. So you can catch up really fast. So you just have to get involved and start that journey, but it will level the playing field for millions of people. So my view is it goes from a $3 trillion asset class today to 100 trillion in 10 years' time. So we're only 3% of the way there. And if you put it in different terms, that means there is $97 trillion of wealth that's going to get made.
Yeah.
People are going to make a lot of money, but it's not a few people. It's not like the tech barons or the bankers. This is like, well, Binance has 260 million customers. Now, you could live 260 million people to change their lives. Okay, that's a big deal. There's 500 million crypto accounts around the world, so you can change 500 million lives. And if you speak to CZ or you speak to the others, they'll say, we want to have 1 billion people, 2 billion people. Well, if you can change 2 billion people's lives, that's a quarter of the world. So it's a very, very big deal. And also it's a big deal because people are getting access to dollars. So the stablecoin thing, I asked CZ about this. I'm like, well, what about stablecoins? He said, I didn't see how big they were going to be. He didn't realize, and most of us didn't realize, how desperate people are to own US dollars.
Yeah.
And so before, to get access to dollars, you had to have access to a big bank, and or you could get a small amount of dollars. But normal people couldn't save in it. And somebody in Southeast Asia, they couldn't get access to dollars. And now suddenly they can get it on their Binance app immediately and send it to somebody else, US dollars. That's an incredible change for people. So there's some really big things happening that really changed the world for a lot of people.
Okay, so I've gone 16 minutes already, folks, but I feel like I packed it in there. Now, there's so much more. We're going to talk about in DAIXRP.com, the Patreon, and if you'd rather join on YouTube, just click the join button below any of my YouTube videos. In there, we're going to talk about what everybody's saying about XRP price and something else that's coming for XRP. Today was a good day. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family. Away we go.